Welcome to Programming for Designers. This is Trish Ladd, WIP 400, Platt College. User Authentication. Authentication is the process in which we can get credentials from the user through a login or something like that and check them against credentials that they stored in the database upon registering for the site. If they match, then the user is granted access to the website and can then further do things on the website. In order for us to accomplish the top set of things, we need to do the lower set of things with our programming. Registering a user allows us to create credentials that can be checked upon logging in, which ensures that we grant access only to the things that we want them to have access to as per their role. So, for example, a site administrator would have greater capabilities over a regular member. When registering for the site, ask for the minimum needed to get them started on it. No one wants to jump through hoops when registering for a new site. Something like a username and/or an email and a password are to be expected. It's a good practice to store only the amount of information you need and not any more or any less. Set a policy on how long a username can be or a password can be. Additionally, whether or not you can use underscores and numbers and capitalization and so on and so forth. Then, when we validate the data, ensure that that is checked. And we want to make sure that we do validate and sanitize any data given to us by any user. And make sure that you ask your users to agree to these things before they sign up. So for example, you may want them to agree to use cookies because as we all know, having cookies makes life more enjoyable. If we make a good registration form, the login form code will follow suit. In fact, we can almost use the same exact code when making the login form that we used for the registration form. The difference being that with the registration, we are creating new data, while when we log in, we are checking against that what we presume is pre-existing data. We want to make sure that we validate and sanitize all user input for the same reasons we've talked about validation and sanitization before. We want to compare those values using the same policies that were required during registration for consistency. We would also create a unique random key to secure login credentials so that when they are going around the site that we know that we have a valid user. Probably store it in something like a session. Once they're logged in, we need to provide a way for the user to log out so that they're not permanently logged in. We can create a specific location for the logout button. And when they log out on that page, it's going to unset or destroy the session or both, and any other cookie variables or whatnot created during the login or while they're on the site. We can then turn around and redirect the user back to the home page or any other unrestricted page. So whenever we have users, oftentimes we have user profiles. And those user profiles would be where users would go to update their personal information. Let's say I have a new email address that I want this site to use instead of my old one. I'd want to update it there. If I want to provide an avatar that I use on the site, I would want to update it there. Let's say I want to update my password. I'd want to update it on the user profile page. Same thing, we want to be consistent with our rules and our policies for passwords and usernames. If people want to be able to change their usernames, they should be unique. So we would have to check the database before allowing a user to update their username. Same thing with passwords, should be the same policy that we set earlier, underscores, usage, length, capitalization, numbers, etc. And we can also do something like if they want to update their password, check the old password to make sure that it is the same as the old password. And then that way we know that we are dealing with a authenticated user and they have the right to update their password if they so choose. We can create a forgot password function so that if they've forgotten their password, they say that they've forgotten their password, they type in their email, and an email is sent to that email address that gives them a new and temporary password that they can then turn around and change. Forgot username, same thing. Forgot email, we can send them to a contact form. We will never want to store any passwords in our database as plain text, and we'll talk about encryption during class. Never want to store login credentials and cookies without making them look either like something else or obscuring their value in some way. We can use hashes and salts. And again, we want to remember to never, ever, ever trust user input. That means sanitization and validation for everything that gets sent to the server. By generating a random key, it allows us to ensure that we have a valid user without storing their login credentials. When we store it in a session, we can check for that key on each page to ensure that they do not gain access to an area where they do not have permission. If someone visits a page where they are not allowed access, presumably a person not logged in or registered, we will know by checking for this key, and then we can redirect them to the login page. This last part is about why people might want to register on our website as a user. Well, maybe there are specific things that they can do as a member that would be really cool. Maybe if they do a lot of commenting, they get some kind of notoriety and so forth. In summary, user authentication is the process of a user providing credentials so that we can verify who they are. And this allows us to control what they can do on our website. Because of this, we need to be able to register users and we need to be able to let them log in. The ability to log out is also crucial because we don't want to have somebody come along behind that user and use their credentials either purposefully or accidentally. We want to obscure all sensitive data like passwords in our database or in a cookie or session. As always, I hope that this lecture was helpful and informative, and I wish you happy coding.